Our civil society groups and academics have marched in Durban in the name of science. The event coincides with a global event called the International March for Science, which promotes public awareness of the strides made in that sector. We're joined in studio by Black Women in Science founder Ndoni Mcunu to tell us more about what this entails. Thank you so much for coming in, Ndoni. Apologies, Ndoni. It's such an exciting initiative to not just see women in sciences and in STEM, because it's often a career that young girls shy away from, but especially to see young Black women in that industry. Tell us a bit more about why you even started this project.
So the project Black Women in Science is actually an NGO, and the whole point of it was that we saw that there was a gap in that women that are entering science are either not informed of what it is that is relevant in the market, and they are not mentored right by young female scientists that are already in the industry. So then we decided to come up with Black Women in Science, and the whole initiative is trying to make scientists more relevant in the market, those in universities, and then those ones that want to enter into the science careers, that they are mentored with the right ones in universities.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you found that women across the board were facing?
So in terms of the ones that are in university, I think the biggest challenge is finding our relevance in all sectors, not just finding relevance to say in the research institutions, but to find relevance in the private sector and the government sector, in even the public sector. So how do we become relevant and have a voice that is heard through our careers in science? The ones that are in high school, I'd say the challenge is rather they have a limited and channeled vision of what is science and what you can pursue in science. So it's time that we expose specialized kind of science amongst our young people, that they don't know what is an environmental scientist or someone that specializes in agriculture or water, but they know a scientist who is just in medicine or in actual science or in civil engineering. So that's the whole point, is that we want to start opening channels and opportunities for those that are wanting to enter the industry, and those that are already in the industry, we want them to become relevant and market appropriate.
And have you found that there is opportunity for scientists in the more broader sectors, and not just, like you say, the typical ones where you would find scientists, whether it's in research, as you've mentioned, or even in actuarial science?
So there is a key relevance in it, and I'll use an example of me, is that I started working for a private company, and the company hired me as a research analyst. I never even knew that I could be hired in that and build reports and do sustainability reports and do best practice structures for the company. So it's a matter of us kind of forcing ourselves and pushing ourselves into the industry and saying that this is my relevance, whether you want to hear it or not. So there's definitely scope, because you learn so much skills in science, not just about your experiments, but skills to analyze data, skills to take information, write information, and make a story out of that information.
And it certainly, talks about, it leads us into the future, right? Because we're moving into a place where a lot of analysts who look at different occupations say what's going to be important going forward is going to be skills more than anything, and the application of those skills. So in this drive that you did, you had a protest. What is this public campaign about? What do you want people to know about you?
So the protest wasn't really driven by Black Women in Science, but it was driven by an international kind of voice by scientists. So it's not a Black Women in Science protest, but it's rather an international voice about science. I think there's a sense of frustration among scientists in that we are discovering and coming up with solutions, yet they're not being heard. They're only heard when there's a crisis. So as soon as there's a water crisis, then all the scientists get called in and said, what is your advice about this? So what we are trying to say as scientists, and I think what the protest was trying to highlight, is that there is a need to make science more relevant throughout the year, throughout all sectors, and that scientists need to start becoming a voice in decision-making, in evidence-based decision-making, in policy decision-making. So we have those skills, but we need to be heard for actual application of our skills.
Well, I think just having this brief conversation with you, you're one of the right people who will lead us into that direction. Wow, so much power. That was Black Women in Science founder Ndoni Mcunu.